If you take issue with a bloody nose or a black eye, think twice before signing up to train Muay Thai. This was a sign that was hung up at the reception desk of a friend's gym the last time I paid him a visit. And I kind of looked at the sign and looked at him, gave him a bit of a look, and he just rolled his eyes. He said, "I'm just sick of these bloody tabby cats." He didn't use the word tabby cats, but you catch my drift. Anyway, I got brought back to this sign when I got sent a question on Instagram, and it was basically from this guy who said that he quite regularly leaves his gym either after receiving a bloody nose or with a little bit of a black eye. And he goes on to say that it doesn't bother him in the slightest. He is completely fine with it, but that friends and families have started to comment on the regularity of it and they're a little concerned. So he just wants to know, are we sparring too hard at this gym? Is it normal to always be walking out with a little mark? And what I think of it in general. Now, anyone who's been following this channel for a while or has watched some of my videos, you're well aware that I'm not a fan of hard sparring. I advocate for controlled sparring and only using hard sparring as a tool when you're approaching a big fight and you need to just replicate that intensity that you're going to experience in the ring, in the cage, whatever your discipline may be. I think there's enough information out there now to understand that the effects of repeated heavy impact to the head is not a great idea. Things like CTE, brain damage, all of these things are stuff that we want to avoid, but we want to train in a way that's still productive, recreational, and useful to us when we're in the gym. But what we're talking about here in terms of black eyes and nosebleeds is a little bit more of an aesthetic thing. And I kind of want to go through what you need to look out for, what you need to be aware of it with, and also just kind of the whole social dynamic of how people are going to receive you when you walk around with a big shiner on your eye. All right, let's start with the bloody nose because that's an easy one I'm very familiar with. If you haven't noticed, I have quite a large nose, so it got hit a lot back in the day. Your nose is full of blood vessels. So on the inside of your nose, there's plenty of blood vessels that don't particularly like it when you smack them and very easily can be burst, and that can cause a nosebleed. Now, the thing with nosebleeds, the average nosebleed is actually about a teaspoon, maybe a tablespoon of blood, but the way it obviously runs down your face and falls into your hands, you can be easily fooled into thinking that it's a lot worse than what it actually is. And more often than not, it really is just these blood vessels in the nose going and causing a bleed. If you've been hit in the nose a few times, you might find that you become more susceptible to these nosebleeds, that it takes less and less impact and it feels like almost every time someone touches you on the nose, you're having a nosebleed. A lot of kids will experience nosebleeds in their sleep, not related to martial arts, but these kids, if they then come and do things like karate, kickboxing, and they take even the tiniest tap on the nose, boom, they tend to get nosebleeds. Now, as an adult, you can get your nose cauterized, which basically means they stick something up your nose and they seal the blood vessels. And what that basically means is that you're going to be far less susceptible. It's going to take a lot more impact to get you to have a nosebleed. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to play one on the internet. Please seek professional medical advice before going under any treatment or getting anything done to your nose or to your eyes. Generally speaking, it makes sense that we as humans don't like the sign of our own blood. It should be genetically coded in us that if we're seeing our own blood, that we think it's a problem. So for a lot of people, just having a nosebleed is enough to make them panic. Just seeing their own blood on their hands or on their face is enough to freak them out. And of course, your loved ones, the ones that care about you, if you're going home and your t-shirt is bloody or there's some residual blood dried in your beard or on your hands, it's going to be cause for concern because they care about you. They don't want to see you bleed. Now, they don't understand that maybe it's just a teaspoon of blood, that it's just these sensitive bits of your nose, and they're going to be concerned. You can reassure them with this information and let them know, really, as long as your nose isn't getting swollen, like you're not seeing visible swelling, and of course, as long as it's not being broken and you can still breathe, you're probably okay. The impact that you're sustaining is probably not due to excessive sparring. All right, let's talk black eyes. Now, there's quite a spectrum when it comes to black eyes. We can go from everything from a tiny little bruising under or above the eyelid to, of course, a full facial black eye with swelling, etc. So we can't put it all under the same thing. It's not like a nosebleed where it's like a nosebleed is a nosebleed. Black eyes have a lot of variety in terms of how bad they can look, and also the underlying damage that might be caused as a result of it. So you might see the black eye on the surface, but there might be more things going on under the surface of the skin than just the black eye. Similar to the nose, we've got loads of blood vessels here and around our eyes, supplying blood obviously around the face and to the eyes, and this is extremely soft tissue. You can feel it for yourself. Touch there and then touch there under your eyelid or just above, and you'll feel the difference in the softness. So that's obviously going to be more susceptible to damage. What a black eye effectively is burst blood vessels underneath the surface of the skin, under the epidermis, and that kind of dark oxidized blood underneath the skin is what you're seeing. That's the blackness that you're seeing. And as your blood circulates and as your body heals, that then fades away. It might go a few different colors as the amount of blood gets moved around through the eye, and eventually you're healed up. Yeah. Now, if we're talking serious injuries, we're obviously talking things about broken orbitals, where we're actually breaking the bone around our eye socket, swelling to the muscular tissue in and around the eyes, the cartilage in and around the eyes. These are very serious, and that's not really what we're referring to. And that's not the guy sent me a picture of his eye. He was referring to small marks underneath here, over and above here. I've touched my eye an awful lot in the last minute. You get the idea. Now, to be clear, I don't think you should be walking out of your gym on a regular basis with black eyes. I say to my guys all the time, you guys have got to go to work tomorrow. You've got jobs, you've got families to go home to. You shouldn't be going home marked up on a regular basis. However, keep in mind that this is a contact sport and it does involve contact to the face, and the chances that you're going to get a black eye are relatively high in comparison to other sports. Go play football, go play rugby, there's a big chance of injuries, ankles, etc. But no one is intentionally aiming for this area, so the likelihood of a black eye is less. However, with boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, we're aiming for the face. So there's a good chance that the damage you're going to sustain, even if it is purely cosmetic and aesthetic, is going to be to your face. Now again, for those outside of the sport, seeing someone with a black eye can be very triggering. I was looking for B-roll for this video, so I was typing in on these B-roll websites about black eyes, and the amount of footage that comes up about domestic abuse. Tons of images of women being beaten and sitting there holding their black eye. So as a society, and this isn't, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that we bring attention to domestic abuse, but we're used to seeing black eyes and associating it with very negative things. And obviously, getting a black eye isn't a good thing, but it's also not the most serious thing. But for a lot of people who aren't used to the idea of sustaining injury to the face, for them it can be very shocking. The same as if you're not someone who's particularly used to the idea of face tattoos or neck tattoos, that can be very jarring for a lot of people to see. They see that as a very big deal. Whereas if you're in like the tattoo space, if you're kind of about that life, it's not really a big deal to have a tattoo on your neck or on your face. If you're about martial arts, if it's your thing, a black eye is not really even a conversation point for you. You're kind of like, yeah, you know, I've got a little bit of a black eye. For people not in the space, it's quite a big deal. They don't see it regularly. It's not something you see in the office every day, and it's going to be a conversation starter. So going back to our friend's question about, is our sparring too intense, too hard? You got to look at a couple of different things. Now, if you're leaving the gym more often than not marked up, then either A, the intensity is too high, because you shouldn't be leaving the gym every week with a different black eye or every week with a bloody nose. Like I said, if you need to have your nose cauterized, that's a bit different. But if every week you're leaving with that kind of damage to your face, the intensity is either too high, or you're sparring people way above your level and you simply don't have the defensive capabilities yet to actually protect your face. So although you might not be getting hit really hard, you're not like getting your head knocked back, but you are getting repeated hit light trauma to that eye, that's eventually going to cause some bruising, that's going to cause a mark. So it might mean that you're just sparring people way above your comfort zone, and that means that you're probably sustaining more shots to the head than you probably should be. So do speak to your coaches. I laughed about my friend's sign in his gym, but it's not actually something I would ever hang up, because I think what you do when you put something like that up is you're telling your community, you're telling people in your gym that it's not really okay to have an issue with contact. And I think the best way to have a healthy sparring environment in your gym is to have open communication about contact. To be very comfortable with turning to anyone in the class and saying, you're going too hard. And for them to hear that and just go, my bad, and pull it back. Without any ego, without anyone getting triggered, without anyone taking offense, without anyone feeling mugged off. I spoke to one of my guys just the other day. He took a big hit, and he stopped and told the guy, and the guy instantly apologized. He was like, I'm so sorry, no issues. He came to me after, he was like, Az, was it all right that I called him up on that? Like, is that cool for me to do? And I was like, it's what I want you to do. I want you to tell people about it. He's like, I felt a little bit mugged off by it. I was like, don't feel mugged off by it. It's one of these things that happens. It was, not intentional. He apologized instantly. You explained yourself. The situation is resolved. And that's the beauty of being able to have that open communication. Now, if you put a thing in your gym about don't complain if you get a black eye, don't say anything if you get a bloody nose, the problem is although I understand who you're trying to address, those that are a bit too sensitive about it, what you're also doing is you're making it very difficult for those where it genuinely is an issue, where people really are going too hard and too intense and they don't feel comfortable talking to you about it. You always want your members, and you always want to feel comfortable being able to talk to your coach about any concerns that you have. At the end of the day, your health and safety should be the number one priority. Everything else after that goes to that. So there we have it, guys. Black eyes, nosebleeds. Please spar safe, look after your training partners, and I will see you on the next one.